Hello, mysterious person behind the screen, and welcome back to another Doctor Who audio commentary with me and Isaac.
Hello.
And this time, continuing our series, look at our first Doctor Who stories. We're doing my first Doctor Who story, Daleks in Manhattan. So get your dodgy American accents out, because we're going to have a pretty fun one with this one. Yes, so whenever you're ready.
Would you like to sync this up with the Blu-ray copy of Daleks in Manhattan? Go to the episode and press play in 3, 2, 1, now.
The amount of nostalgia I have for this whole story is pretty high.
I bet, yeah, and would say, not to be that guy, this is, out of all the stories for Series 3, this is probably my least favourite.
Yeah?
But it's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. I think it's got good ideas, I just don't think they're well executed.
Yeah, I can see that. I think I definitely agree that it's not as bad as people make it out to be, because I think people really rag on it as though it's like one of the worst in the revival, and I don't think it's that bad. For me, at worst, it's a bit of silly fun. Obviously, I am very heavily biased to it, and I do really enjoy watching it, because it takes me right back to seeing it as a kid, and obviously it's the genesis of my interest in the show. But I'm definitely not blind to its faults, and we'll talk about them as we go kind of throughout these two episodes here. But yeah, like I said, I think at worst I do think it is just a bit of fun, and it's ambitious. It's very ambitious as well, with the location and trying to pull off New York on a 2007 budget is it's very ambitious.
Yeah, because particularly for the exterior scenes, they didn't actually go to New York. They just used stock footage for like establishing shots.
Yeah, well, we just saw it then with the at the opening of this episode. The establishing shot of the theatre looks really rough, because it's a load of extras green screened into a backdrop, and it's pretty bad.
Next, I'd say with it started with the Stephen Moffat era, particularly Series 5. There's like 2 stories that were filmed in Croatia, I think, where, the international filming started to become pretty common, because Classic Who, it was extremely rare to go abroad, but that was just part of the
norm. And especially when you get to like Series 6 and 7, they're really pushing the American settings, because obviously that was when it really went big over there, sort of from Series 5 onwards. So.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure about Flux. I'm not sure if any scenes were filmed abroad, but because of COVID, it set them back a bit.
That's sort of. I mean, I'm looking forward one day to the behind-the-scenes story of Flux, because there's COVID messed up a lot of things on that production, and but it's ambitious what they managed to pull off in that, given what happened. So yeah, the first, I guess, memory I have of Doctor Who, we'll talk about it when we get to the scene later, but it's them finding the green brain in the sewer, and so it's very distinct. Okay. The memory I have on it. I didn't watch this on transmission. I watched it on the BBC 3 repeat. I just caught it, like my parents were channel hopping, and I just caught it on there, and it was the scene where they find the green brain, and I was just fascinated by that image, and then it all went from there, really. And Series 3 Volume 2, the DVD, was the first kind of Doctor Who thing that I owned, and I watched that to death. So yeah, this up to 42, that collection of 4 episodes, I have so much nostalgia for.
You mentioned BBC 3. It was like back in the 70s and 80s, it was the Target novels that people had to revisit to relive old adventures. For me, it was BBC 3. We have a lot to thank for their repeats, because they just often show them. In fact, I think before Christmas between like when Series 2 ended in Christmas 2006, when I got like the Series 1 and 2 vanilla DVDs, you know, I caught up on the series with BBC Three. I had so much to thank for them for.
BBC, I mean, in general, around it was this time, the BBC were catering to Doctor Who on all of its channels, really, whether it was repeats on the other channels or like totally Doctor Who on CBBC, and Doctor Who Confidential on BBC Three and everything. It was it was really pushing the show at this point.
Yeah. Totally Doctor Who was great because they showed it every Friday afternoon. They'd cover like the previous week's episode, and then they'd say, "Here's a clip for tomorrow's episode. Enjoy." Which that was so cool.
And of course,
for
this series they had the Infinite Quest as well alongside it, so you were getting a full animated adventure every week. So it was it was such a good time, like in terms of just the content surrounding the show. Like you were always being fed something.
I like the Infinite Quest, but I don't like the circumstances it was made, because after the Invasion animation, the same team wanted to do Power of the Daleks, but Cosgrove Hall decided, no, doing stuff for the new series should take priority. They got that a lot.
Definitely. It's interesting, the Infinite Quest, because you see what the assets that they created, they went on to reuse a lot in the comics, like the Doctor Who Adventures, and also the website. Like they used the character model for the 10th Doctor and Martha in like the games, and they had the comic maker like in 2008 with Series 4, and they used the designs from the Infinite Quest for it, and they got a lot of mileage out of those character designs. So here's Captain Panaka from the Phantom Menace.
It is, yeah. I'll say here, the world building here is pretty good. You know, just establishes what the history is like. People living in the park, people are unemployed and starving.
It's really good, I think, and I think the world of Hooverville is represented really well, and brought to life really well. And it's Hugh Corshey's performance really sells a lot of it as Solomon. I think he's really good in this. And it's interesting as well that I don't know that the themes are very... I don't know that the themes are explored the best, but there's a lot on this story's mind about like class, because like pointing to the Empire State and going, you know, they can build that up there and we're stuck down here, and then also the pig slaves being used as kind of a metaphor for how kind of working class, less fortunate people, homeless people were viewed at this time. I don't know that it's always well explored, but the story certainly strives to touch on those topics.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to come out and say it. You know, I don't think they should have used the pig slaves. I think they should have just been regular people who just do what the Daleks say. But they don't care. They're listening to creatures from outer space because the Daleks say, you know, give them food and shelter. They don't care. They have purpose in life. They're willing to do work rather than starve to death, which I think would have been kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, the pig slaves are a striking visual, and they were obviously great for the toys. But it's one of those things where it's like, I don't quite know. I don't really see the point. It's fun to have a monster in there. But yeah, I agree. I think that would have been a lot more powerful.
And yeah, when you think about it here in context of the RTD era, the Daleks have been only gone for like 4 episodes.
And
and the way they're introduced here out of the lift, it's just so boring.
It's
just like, here's the Dalek, get over
I
it.
really like the shot of the lift like the circle and the door opens and it's eye, like that's really cool. But I in a way I quite like the fact that it's almost a surprise at this point, because we're 3 series in and both series finales have featured the Daleks, so in a way it's almost like, okay, this is actually a surprise that they're showing up at this point. But yeah, I do sort of agree as well.
This is not the first time the Daleks have been to the Empire State. They were there in the chase. Oh, they should have got Peter Purvis to cameo in this.
It would have been quite something. It would have been fun.
Yeah, interestingly enough, this was supposed to be written by Stephen Moffat, and then it was given to Helen Rayner because he was too busy.
Yeah, and we got Blink out of that, didn't we? So I think it all worked out.
And given how Moffat wrote the Daleks and Asylum of the Daleks...
Yeah, I think it worked out for the best.
That's what it is.
So, famous face coming up in a minute. A certain Spider-Man.
Andrew Garfield, best known for Hacksaw Ridge. Don't know if he's done anything else. Yeah, obviously, Andrew Garfield is here in this as Frank, and we're in New York as well. You never know; it could be Peter Parker's grandfather.
Exactly. It all links. It's all linked together. He looked really young in it as well.
He still looks the same, and he's turned 40 recently.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's cool, the idea of like the rich using the homeless for their own kind of devious need. It's a cool idea.
Mm-hmm. In the Series 3 story arc, we often see it as Harold Saxon or, Mr. Saxon, but there seems to be another arc going on. I don't know if it was intentional, the theme of rebirth and being reborn. The Carrier Knights in Shakespeare Code are trying to give their race a rebirth. In Gridlock, humanity's given another chance after being saved from a virus that could have killed them. The Daleks are trying to evolve here. Richard Lazarus tries to rebirth himself in Lazarus Experiment. The family in the Human Nature two-parter try to gain the life of a Time Lord. And then it all culminates in the Master being reborn in the finale. I don't know if that was intentional, but
I think
it's
one of those
cool.
things where it happens so often, I would be surprised if it wasn't intentional. But especially because like the Lazarus thing actually links into the finale, because the Lazarus technology ends up being used in the laser screwdriver and everything, so it would definitely fit. But yeah, it's cool.
And it's funny, we can look at all the story arcs of the series and point like what's the recurring theme, but we look to Series 4 and people often struggle to actually name it. They either say, oh, Rose returning, or oh, the bee's disappearing, or oh, the planet's disappearing.
Series 4 is an interesting one because it is mostly It is mostly Rose, I think. That's the thing that's built up to it's yeah.
Yeah, if I had to pick, I'd probably say
Yeah,
Rose
it's not
returning.
one singular thing, really, is it? It's sort of a lot of things that you kind of get with Series 4. Something is coming, something big, but it's not like the first 3 series where there's like a word or a phrase or a tangible thing. But yeah. But
So here we are with
yeah.
the brain on the floor.
This is
This
the
is your
first memory.
first scene.
Specifically, I vividly remember the shot that we just saw of the torch going through the bottom of it, and you kind of see the insides of it. It just fascinated me, and it was, as a kid, I think every kid loves sort of slime and stuff like that. So it was that kind of aspect, and just the idea. And then I think I kind of kept watching into this bit with the Empire State Building, and I knew of Doctor Who. It wasn't like this was me discovering the show, but I had heard the name, but I didn't really know what it was about. After watching this, as far as I was concerned, it was always set in New York, kind of thing. It was this, but it hooked me enough for my parents to buy me the Series 3 Volume 2 DVD, and that's how I watched the rest of it. But yeah, it's weird how it's the little images that kind of stick with you, more than sort of the whole, because that's the only thing I can remember from like the first time I watched it, and then kind of the rest of it was just the amount of times I watched it as a kid. But yeah, the first one I watched as broadcast, as in the first showing of it going out, was actually Human Nature. And I was very confused.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's like I wasn't familiar enough with the show to understand how it was all working yet, and so Human Nature is quite a confusing one to jump into. But yeah. But this was kind of the start of it for me, because I remember the Christmas of that year. It happened very thick and fast for me. I got into the show very quickly, because that Christmas, all I got was Doctor Who stuff. It was like every present I opened of Christmas 2007, every present I opened was the familiar shape of the figures. Like, I got so many of them, and the TARDIS playset, and it was kind of counting down to Voyage of the Damned, because that was the first Christmas special I'd ever watched. It was kind of an event there, and yeah, there's lots of good memories.
Yeah, I got the Cyberman voice changer helmet for Christmas 2006, nice. Which I understand was the best-selling toy of the UK
an award, I think,
that year.
Yeah. So recently I bought the DWM special about the character options figures, and it does kind of go into that, and it's a fascinating read, and just they'd really hit a stride by this point in terms of the popularity of the show, and the figures themselves. This is kind of the peak of them, I think, because this was the era you got things like Laszlo as a figure of all, and Grandma Connolly, like, of all the characters, it's so funny.
I think it was during this time. I think it was after Series 2 had broadcast. Battles in Time started.
Yeah, it was around this, I think, because the Series 3 set was the Invader set, and that's where I got most of the cards from, which was around this time. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. I decided to I think I got as far as like 25 issues or something like that. It's funny, I said to myself, I got to like issue 23 and thought, okay, I'll stop at 24. Read the back of issue 24 that said, coming in issue 25, a new set of cards, like they're doing series 3s, and thought, oh, for God's sake, I'll have to buy this now. But I did buy the Ultimate Monsters magazine, which came with all those cards, because it was 2009, 8 when I got into those, so I think... I think it was a dream for like classic series getting like the new series treatment of
definitely.
exposure.
Because that I think 2008, late 2008, 2009 was when they started to lean into the classic stuff a bit more. Because obviously 2008 was where you got the first wave of classic Doctor Who figures. So that kicked off that line, and I remember them kind of leaning into that a lot more.
I can remember for my birthday, it was my 12th birthday in 2010, I got the first classic series Dalek set, which was the Dead Planet Dalek, a Supreme Dalek from Planet, and a Genesis Dalek.
That's a really rare set now.
The other two have broken, but I've still got the Dead Planet Dalek.
Yeah, because that was the first classic series release. I think was the Dalek set.
It was.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was planned to be, but it just worked out that way. Yeah.
I can remember summer 2009. I collected the classic Cybermen figure sets where you collected 4, and it would build a cyber controller from Tomb of the Cybermen.
I never got those sets, but I always wanted them. And I wasn't really familiar with I'd seen like the big iconic stories, but I wasn't hugely familiar with Classic Who at the time. But I just wanted those figures because they looked awesome, and also what you could build with them. So yeah, I never got them at the time, but when they re-released them in B&M, I snapped them up. But I it's funny with the Battles in Time. I have more vivid memories of Monster Invasion than Battles in Time. I think.
It was. Those.
I collected them. I think more because Battles in Time. I guess I came into it late because it had already started up when I got into the show. Whereas Monster Invasion, I was there for the start of it, and I went up until I think the 3rd series of that. It was basically exactly the same thing, just with the Moffat era branding. But yeah. But this whole time is like, I think from 2006 to 2011, it's just kind of peak era in terms of the merchandise and just the amount that was going on with the show, and the amount of just memories I have with it.
We were 3 years in, and they still hadn't got the Dalek build right. I don't think they got it right until 2008, because when you get to the Stolen Earth set with a Supreme Dalek and a Progenitor Dalek, they look a lot more accurate.
It was the Crucible. I think they called it the Crucible Dalek on the toy packaging. That was the first one where they'd managed to get the build right. Because
it's Crucible, Progenitor's Victory.
yeah, but it's mad though. Like 4 series in was when they finally fixed that, and it's not something that as a kid really bothered me. But once somebody points it out to you that the original figures had like wrong proportions, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
I definitely think though this story is perhaps the most, certainly at the time it's maybe the most iconic from series 3, or certainly the most well publicized, in terms of like the hype around it at the time. I think because they had the Radio Times cover with the Black Dalek, with Dalek Sec, and you had like there was an alternative, I think it was Woolworths exclusive, a version of the box set which was just all Daleks on it. Well,
the Radio Times spoiled the cliffhanger, didn't it? Because it revealed what the hybrid looked like.
The mutant.
I wonder if that really pissed off Russell.
It would not surprise me. Yeah. Because this is definitely, I think, the blockbuster of the year, in the same, or it's like the mid-series event story, in the same way that Rise of the Cybermen was. In terms of like it's really built up to, and there's a lot of hype around it and everything.
I mean, 2007, you've got this, and the Christmas special was Voyage of the Damned. It almost feels like Doctor Who trying to do Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely. And Voyage of the Damned is the I think it is pretty much it typifies the blockbuster nature that the show was aiming for with the event episodes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So we're about to get our first, aside from the pre-titles, we're about to get our first proper scene with Constance Clark. I mean Tallulah.
Yes, she's a Big Finish companion, isn't she? Miranda
Sixth Doctor
Rayson.
companion, yeah. And I didn't know that for years because she looks so different in this. She looks completely different. She sounds completely different. But yeah, she's having fun hamming it up.
I only listened to one story with her, and that's the I can't remember what, Cry of the Vultures. That's it. I only listened to that one with her.
I've only listened to the one in the Last Adventure box set, which I think is End of the Line, the one that she's in, because there's a different companion in all four of those stories. But yeah. But yeah, she's fun in this. She's very over the top, but I think she's kind of meant to be because she's meant to be that kind of exaggerated showgirl thing. But it's. I think she's fun in this. I think she's really good. To be honest, I'm surprised they never brought out a figure of her. Because they gave us Laszlo, they gave us the pig slaves, they gave us Dalek Sec as the mutant. You know.
Yeah, we got plenty of trading cards in Battles in Time. The funniest, I was about to say that the funniest has to be Cameraman.
Refugee 1, where it just looks like they've got like an intern and gone, can we just take your photo and just say you're a refugee and be done with it? Like,
yeah. Here's their next card. Krusty the Clown poses for a trading card photo. He's really running out of ideas.
I think this might be the best look for the 10th Doctor. Like, I love the blue suit. Specifically just the way it looks in the story, because the tie is slightly more scruffy. And just the way he wears it, I think it might be the best look that he had. Yeah, I'm fond of the blue suit.
Yeah, I'm not a fan where he wears just like a t-shirt underneath his blazer. It just looks really kind of boring. I'd say his best look is probably Series 4, where brown suit, white shirt. So that's the best look in my opinion.
I think.
I'd say his worst look, just off the top of my head, is like Tooth and Claw, where it looks like he's wearing 50
layers. It's really weird,
layers.
Isn't it? And like that's clearly like the early days where they're still trying to kind of experiment with the costume a little bit, and it just looks really odd. Capaldi kind of has that too. Like he has those kind of different shirt combinations in Series 8, and he gets the holy jumper, and then it never really settles until late Series 9 into Series 10. I don't think. Yeah.
I know Freema Agyeman said she was very nervous starting because she was filling in Billie Piper's shoes and she knew how popular she was, but she said everyone, all the cast and crew were very welcoming to her. It never made her feel like she was the new person.
Yeah, it's not really talked about enough, really, but she had a really difficult job because really the first 2 years, Rose is the main character, and then she goes. Freema Agyeman had a really difficult job because she was filling in like the star of the show essentially. And I don't feel like people talk about that enough, and I think she did a great job, and I'll always go to bat for Martha because I think she gets more love now, but certainly at the time. And I remember sort of in my teenage years as well, I don't think Martha was very popular. and I always do defend Martha because I think she's a great character, and I really like Freema in the role, and underrated, I think.
Like, because I always said she's mature enough to like understand and tolerate the Doctor's flaws as a human, but she's also selfless enough to herself to say, you know what, I do deserve better than this.
And she grows so much over the course of this as well. It's different from Rose because you get the sense that Martha is first of all, she's older, and you also feel like she's already going through enough in terms of trying to hold her family together. She's probably the only one in that whole family that has got her shit together and is having to sort shit out for them. So you already get the sense that she's
true,
kind of determined and capable enough with that. And then the idea that she kind of lets herself slip because of the Doctor, and she kind of falls for him, and it's not really her, and it's not entirely comfortable for her to feel that way, and kind of her growing to realise, actually, no, I don't deserve this anymore. I'm just going to get out at the end. I really enjoy her growth and her arc, and I think she's a great character.
Because honestly, walking the Earth on her own for a year, that's way more epic than absorbing the time vortex.
No, I do agree. And especially like by the time she turns up in Torchwood, she's a different character, but she still feels very much the same Martha as she always was. And I think that's really cool.
Apparently it was in, like, when she appeared in Torchwood, they were contracted not to have her swear.
Yeah, and that is the one thing I think with Torchwood. I think the team behind the whole Empire, they were very clever, and they were very smart and very on it in terms of keeping the tone of it consistent, making, having that stipulation that Martha can't swear and she can't do anything that she wouldn't do in Doctor Who. And I think the same thing, you never see the Doctor in Torchwood, you just hear the TARDIS, because I think it would feel weird if he turned up in a show as adult as Torchwood. And I think that's where I think Class kind of fucked that up a little bit, because you've got Ram's girlfriend's, like getting stabbed through the chest, brutally murdered. His leg gets cut off, and then suddenly, Doctor Who's running about. It's really weird. Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep an eye on you.
Yeah, it's really weird. You've got a new leg. Like it's odd, and it feels out of place because it's suddenly like, okay, here's this family character after we've just witnessed all of this gore and like death, and I think they had it right with Torchwood not to let the Doctor turn up in it and just to make reference to him. And I think it's fine the other way around. Like, Torchwood characters appearing in Doctor Who doesn't feel weird, but I think they made the right decision by not having him turn up there.
This has to be the weirdest thing a Dalek has done.
Inserting
a guy into what's essentially his anus.
I've never heard it put that way before, but you're correct. It is strange.
So I'm not a fan of how Daleks are often operated in this. Like, if you look at Dalek's egg, every time he talks, his like eye stick wobbles up and down,
he's shaking,
like he's a puppet. It just looks really comical and silly.
It's odd. It's later on, the bit I love is it's so stupid, but it's so funny. It's when the Daleks are like gossiping about Sek in the corridor, and the one just looks round to make sure nobody's watching. Like, it's so funny, but yeah. So this whole musical number, love the idea of it. If you want to do the showgirl aesthetic in the 30s, amazing, go for it. Love the idea of it. I think it's the way it's shot and the way it's edited, I think leaves a lot to be desired. When I watched it recently, I was just like, oh, this is very static. It's almost like, and I get it. It's probably a budget thing and a time thing. It's one of those things where I'm like, they probably could do it better now, but this doesn't feel like a packed theatre. It feels like you've got two people in the front row and that's it.
Yeah.
When it should feel like, I just feel like the editing, you almost want the quick cuts. You want it to match the beat of the song, the rhythm of it. You want the camera movements to be a bit over the top and a bit, mad. But it isn't. It's very static, and it's... Yeah, I just think it leaves a lot to be desired, and it could have been really cool. Like, that shot from the top down, like, coming up as she looks at the camera is really cool, and I kind of wanted more of that. And I think it was in a lot of the trailers. I remember, seeing, like, the coming soon, and they really made use of it in the trailers. It just, it's a shame. I think it could have been a lot better.
Martha's a bit silly here. Like,
Yes.
Don't walk on stage, just walk backstage.
Walk behind the curtain. Like,
yeah, go behind the curtain. You don't need to walk on stage.
Because if you're trying to be stealthy as well, Laszlo can plainly see you.
Yep.
You almost feel like this would have been a cut to credits moment in a classic Who story. Planet of Origin, Scarro.
Yeah.
Like, it just feels very... I think the makeup for Laszlo is really, really good. In terms of blending the human skin with the pig skin. I think it's really effective.
Yeah. Yeah, you get the sense he's basically the reject of the group. He was broke free before conversion.
I think you can tell that the actor is struggling to talk through the big, massive teeth, especially later on. But overall, I think it works.
Is Paul Casey the body, and if they dubbed over his voice with the actor playing Laszlo, or is it actor playing Laszlo doing both?
I've always wondered this. I think it's the actor playing Laszlo doing both, but it looks different to Laszlo. So
I'm sure there's a credit that says Hero Pigman, which I'm going to assume is meaning Laszlo. I
think that just means... Usually when you hear, like, hero in front of something, it means, like, the main pig slave. Like, because I think it means just the pig slave that you see the most, because there's one pig slave in this that looks like the one in all the photos that was done for this, and the others do sort of look quite cheap. And I think Paul Casey is that main pig. But yeah, because there's one pig slave later. It's in the cliffhanger for this, and his eyes look like they're bulging out of his head. Like, he looks like he's seen some shit. They look quite good though, the pigs. I mean, you can tell they're men in masks. Like, it does look like rubber masks, and it's obvious, but they're pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, why was Russell so obsessed by making monsters out of everyday animals?
It's a theme in the revival, isn't it? It's sort of... Most of the monsters are...
I like to think, had he done the whole pig pilot thing from Aliens of London later in his run, he could have said, "Oh, I was poking fun at my own work.
Yeah,
I've made aliens that look like Earth animals. Now I've got aliens making Earth animals look like aliens."
Yeah. I really like that image, by the way, of the Dalek in the sewer. I think that looks really cool, and the light spilling down and everything. Here's David Tennant doing some classic bottom teeth, I'm angry acting.
Yeah. I do like his anger at the Daleks here, because when he last faced them, he lost Rose, and it feels like it's all been for nothing, because 4 of them have survived.
He even says it, doesn't he? He's like, they always survive, well, I lose everything. Like, he's, you know... I do. So we kind of spoke about it earlier that the Daleks. It feels like, oh yeah, here they are, just mid-series, almost like a non-event. But I do kind of appreciate the way this does feel like a classic Who four-parter where the Daleks would appear mid-season. Kind of, it has that vibe to it. It has kind of a Death to the Daleks vibe. Kind of Planet of the Daleks vibe, where it's just kind of a mid-season Dalek story. It has that kind of air about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it is the actor who plays Laszlo doing this as well.
Yeah,
like just looking at it now.
Be.
We spoke about
Paul Casey. I was just saying, Paul Casey was like the main monster man during the RTD era.
Yeah.
Now I think it's Richard Price.
Richard Price, I think so.
Yeah, because I've followed him on Instagram, and he's always sharing about memories of being inside a Doctor Who monster. So I'm going to assume he's the main monster guy now.
We spoke about Totally Doctor Who earlier. The big event, I guess, this series of it, apart from the Infinite Quest, was that the winner of Companion Academy from the year prior got to go and visit the set of this story, and
oh really?
Yeah, I remember seeing her like interviewing David Tennant in the theatre set. And
nice.
Tennant does the McCoy thing, where he's got the script folded up in his pocket, sticking out of the coat, which is a very Sylvester McCoy thing, because you often see he did that on like in the behind the scenes stuff. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, for Totally Doctor Who, I didn't watch much.
Me neither.
First series that I didn't watch much of the first series that covered series 2, but when they did series 3, I watched every week.
Yeah.
And it was such a cool program. It was like Doctor Who Confidential, but for kids.
It really was, and that's what I mean. Kind of when I said earlier, it got everyone involved. This whole it definitely gave kids the Doctor Who content whenever they needed it.
It was cancelled to make way for the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yes, and considering that the budget of Doctor Who always looked like it was about 10p, I'm sure the budget of Sarah Jane, got a nice little 10p extra for that. No, I'm joking. I'm quite glad it happened, because we got Sarah Jane, and I love that show, so it worked out in the end.
Writer Joe Lidster said to me, we had no money on Sarah Jane Adventures. We didn't have a lot.
Yeah. I was listening to Out of the Broom Cupboard, the podcast run by the wonderful Chris Johnson, and he had Russell C Davies as a guest on it, and it's a podcast about like kids TV and everything. And he said on the Sarah Jane Adventures, they were lucky that they got everyone to come back every series, because it was one of those things where they never knew if they were going to get recommissioned. After series 2, there was just no money. Like it was they were going through like, this was post 2008 with the credit crunch. There was never a guarantee that they'd be back for another year, which is why you may notice all of the Sarah Jane finales pretty much feel like they could be the end of the show. They always tie everything up quite neatly, so I think, and it was kind of as a safety, but it was really interesting listening to that, because it was always like, there were no fixed contracts in place, like they just kind of had to hope people would come back. It's why like Geeta and Haresh aren't like regular characters, because it was just, okay, are the actors available? Brilliant, get them in, kind of thing. And apparently they were just really lucky that the kids always came back to do it.
Yeah, I know Joe Lidster said if you had Haresh and Geeta in one story together, it was a more expensive one. If you were given the cheaper episode, you could only choose one or the other.
Yeah, that's it. Which is why often you get like, oh, your dad's had to stay at the school for a bit longer tonight to account for the fact that Haresh isn't in the episode, or like, oh yeah, Geeta's gone on a work strip, or like it's. But the thing is, you know that now looking at the show. But if you didn't know that, I think the Sarah Jane Adventures is such a tight show. That never shows. Like, the lack of money never ever shows on screen. It always feels like a really polished
it never
production.
did for me. Yeah, because even a story like Mark of the Berserker, just looking at what Joe Lidster's told me now, Haresh is only in that episode, and what's the biggest special effect in that story? It's just like blue lines.
Yeah, exactly.
On somebody's skin, that's it.
Which wasn't that done?
I remember Joe Lidster did say in an interview, I wrote that because I wanted kids to copy it, feeling like they could just get out a blue pen and become a berserker.
There you go. That's what I was going to say. It's like that idea that kids could do that in the playground. They could just draw something on their finger, on their hand, and I love that aspect of not just Sarah Jane but Doctor Who in general. Like, it's that idea of being able to kind of replicate the world of the show with everyday objects. Yeah, so if you look at one of the pigs behind the Doctor and Martha here, you'll just notice its eyes.
I've seen some shit today.
It really is like it's just off his head, and I can tell that was probably one of the cheaper costumes. Because I think we spoke about it last.
It's weird, like. I was just going to say, the Doctor says to Martha, ask them what's going on, I don't want to get noticed.
Yes.
But then literally, the first scene after the cliffhanger is him drawing attention to himself. Like, make your mind up.
He's a manipulative bastard.
Also, he's clearly in their line of vision here. They should know he's there.
Yes. He's doing a bit of that Patrick Troughton thing where he's sort of awkwardly hiding behind people.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, this cliffhanger. Oh God, I just watching it over and over again as a kid. It was just like the most exciting thing ever. And okay, he looks a bit silly, but as a kid, I just bought into it, and just like the music is really powerful. I think. Yeah,
because I call him Mr. Bean with the turkey on his head.
It really does. Mr. Bean with the turkey on his head. The tentacles, get your penis jokes out of the way. They do look a bit weird.
It does look. A Dalek taking the form of a human, again, not a bad idea. It's just the execution's pretty silly looking.
I get what they've tried to do to make it look like the mutant inside, but yeah. But hey, it worked as well because they did this as a voice changer helmet, and I still have it.
Does it change? What does it change your voice to? An American accent?
I think it just does like a. Actually, that's a good point. I've never. What voice is it going to change it to? I'm going to have to look at that after this. That's a really good point. Maybe it doesn't change your voice. Maybe it's just a helmet. I thought for sure it did though. Huh. But yeah, I had it anyway.
There was a Jadoon helmet as well.
Yes,
which
I have that too.
I only ever had the Cyberman and Dalek one, but I'm going to assume the Jadoon one changed your voice, but...
I think it did.
If you got this, what would it change it to? Just like an American accent?
I'm going to have to look at that after we're done here, because I have all of those helmets that they released, and I still have them now, so...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we'll talk about it in the next episode, but they reused those Tommy guns in Torchwood a few times, the Dalek Tommy guns, as like props in the background.
Yeah, I mean, Torchwood were around at this point in history, so who's to say they didn't pick them up?
They probably got them, yeah, somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, folks, so that's the end of part 1 of the commentary. We are now going to have to change discs, because the Blu-ray has this story spread across 2 discs, annoyingly. I hope they fix that for the new Blu-ray set.
Press play on Evolution of the Daleks in 3, 2, 1, go. One thing I noticed about the previous part is that the Daleks don't say exterminate in it.
It's true, actually. Huh, that is interesting. I never really thought about it before.
They say it in this episode, so it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But here's a fun fact about the Dalek-Sec hybrid. You notice when Mr. Diagorus meets Dalek-Sec, he puts on black gloves because they thought that they thought no one had ordered like the hands for the hybrid, so they thought, okay, if he's going to come out, have him wear black gloves to hide his human hands. But it turns out the hands had been found after all, so it was okay.
That's such a Doctor Who thing. That is such a Doctor Who production problem. Also, it's weird to think, so we were speaking earlier about kind of Freddie Mercury having to come in and replace, essentially the star of the show. It's weird to think when you watch like The Runaway Bride that by that point the cast of that started the revival had all gone.
More or less, yeah.
It's weird to think that it was all new. Now, I noticed when I watched this last time, there's quite a big editing. It's not a mistake. I can tell why they've done it, but it looks really weird. So you'll notice when the Doctor steps out and the Daleks go to attack him, there's like two shots, one after the other, and the second shot is just reverse. It's just they've flipped the shot.
Yeah.
Like they've literally flipped it backwards, and you can tell because David Tennant's hair is on the wrong side, and they've done it because it's like to show the geography of him looking at that one Dalek. But it's so funny when you notice it because you can't unsee it.
Yeah, I
that
can't.
they've just flipped the shot.
Yeah, I can't unsee it now, yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed there's a few times throughout this era where they do stuff like that. But yeah. I do like this scene though. This is very Doctor-y. This is him, like, talking down to the enemy kind of thing. It's your classic Doctor has a chat with the enemy.
Yeah, the Doctor mentioned an emergency temporal shift roasted their power cells, so I'm going to assume they can't do it anymore, except the end when Dalek Khan does it.
Yes.
Yay?
Yeah. I always assumed that was kind of from the lightning strike.
Oh yeah, probably, maybe.
I don't know. Maybe they just drained the power from all those TV screens that are putting those graphics on.
Yep.
Which apparently, I found out recently, anytime there's like graphics like that on screen, on like TV screens in this era, apparently it was all run off a PS2.
Oh wow.
Which is it really there's a product of its time.
I remember when Dalek Khan escapes at the end, there was a theory that he had gone back in time to the creation of the Daleks, because rumor was flying around that Davros was going to be in series 4, so they thought maybe it's like this.
Well, it was really for the first 5 series. I'm trying to think if there was one for series 6, but the first 5 series of the revival, there was this big push to kind of bring back an old classic monster for each series. So obviously series 1 was the Daleks, series 2 Cybermen, 3 was the Master, 4 was Davros, 5 was the Silurians.
Yeah. I mean, series 6 you had the Cybermats.
Yeah, I guess that counts, the Cybermats.
Series 7 you had...
Series 7 the Ice Warriors.
Can't really think of anything for the Capaldi era. Maybe for series 9 you could say the Zygons.
Yeah, but then again, I guess that was a 50th thing, so... Yeah. I guess it was a trend that lasted longer than I thought.
Latest we've had is the Sea Devils in Legend of the Sea Devils.
Yeah. I really like the shots where the camera's fixed to the Daleks.
Cool, yeah.
Looking up at them, it's cool. As much as I criticised the musical number earlier, I do think that I can't remember who directed this, but whoever it was is having a lot of fun.
It's
Anyway,
James Strong directed this one.
There you go then. James Strong is having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, he had done the Satan Pit 2-parter the previous year, and he'd done Cyberwoman and They Keep Killing Susie for Torchwood.
Oh, okay. I mean, say what you all about Cyberwoman, I think it's directed quite well in terms of just the atmosphere of the base and stuff, because it's all dark and... in general, Cyberwoman, if it wasn't for that fucking design, I think it would be I think it'd be looked upon as a minor modern classic, because it's a really good Cyberman story in terms of like just the atmosphere, the base under siege aspect, the idea of like body horror it's really cool. It's just the design is fucking appalling, and it just sinks the whole story.
Yeah, that speech Jack gives to Yanto about how the Cybermen can conquer the universe just because of small beginnings is terrific.
Yeah. It's really good. The actual story just is pretty good, I think, and then it just, that bloody design.
I can remember watching a documentary about Daleks Beyond the Screen, and they talked about like Dalek parodies you'd see in like grown-up magazines where their plunger and gun was replaced with what essentially looked like tits, and they had their gun was moved to the bottom of their skirt thingy, and it obviously looked very phallic. Apparently it went up when they got excited.
Oh, very good. Yeah. Very good. So instead of being a Nazi salute, it's now an erection.
Exactly. It'd be like if you had that in Torchwood. I wouldn't have put it past them.
I was going to say, Series 1 Torchwood, I would not have put it past them. Shame, really. So now, actually, as of this year, I have now seen all of Torchwood. Before, I'd only seen the first 2 years. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's an interesting show, Torchwood. I think, at its peak, like Children of Earth.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. Like, when it's good, it's incredible.
It is, yeah.
I just think it has quite a lot of lows as well, and I think I watching Miracle Day, I was struggling.
Oh yeah,
I really struggle with it.
Mm-hmm.
The CGI for the Flying Daleks looks pretty good. Actually, I think it's an improvement over the first two series.
Yeah. Also, it's a devil in the sky. What devils are you looking at?
Yeah.
I think where this two-parter falls apart is in the second half, where the Doctor seems to be willingly okay with working with the Daleks. Like, they've kidnapped people, stripped them of their identities, and the Daleks are going to fill them with new DNA, and the Doctor's alright with this?
Again, I think it's one of those things that's... On paper, I don't mind the idea that he's like, look, I have tried everything to keep these creatures at bay. I've tried everything to destroy them. Let's see if this works. Let's give this a go. I like that idea. I think it's communicated poorly.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, it does come across as like he's just happy to do it. But I like I said, I like the idea in concept that he's like, look, let's just try it because I've got nothing left at this point. They keep coming back, so let's give this a go. But like you said, I just think it's communicated pretty poorly.
Yeah, because it is Dalek Sec who makes the suggestion saying, you have your TARDIS, take us to a new planet that we can thrive under. Because the Doctor will often give an enemy that choice if they refuse to give up their plan.
I do think that part 2 is the weaker of the two halves.
Yeah.
And I thought that as a kid as well. Like, I always had more fun with part 1 than this.
It's the first story of the new series to have the classic Of the Daleks title.
It is, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Chris Chibnall loved it.
Oh, yeah. I really like this as well. Like, Solomon does this big grand speech,
Hmm.
and the Daleks just kills him. I really like that. That's a classic Dalek. He's just a ruthless bastard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's really good, and
It's on
it's
my
impactful as well because
rewatch.
you've
My rewatch
yeah.
recently, when I watched Into the Dalek, I'm just like, this is Daleks just being complete ruthless killing machines, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I mean, was it around about this
Especially,
time that people started theorizing that, the Daleks were contractually obliged to appear once a year, otherwise they lose the rights?
I think maybe. Has that ever been confirmed or not? Because I know the BBC have said sometimes that actually it's bollocks, but they would say it's bollocks. Like they wouldn't come out and say that
I know
because it looks
technically,
bad on
yeah,
them.
the
So
Daleks are owned by the Terry Nation estate.
yeah, because yeah, I think it's sort of it's when you had like okay, we're not going to get any Doctor Who for 2016.
Mm.
We're going to get the Christmas special. Oh, they're not in that. Oh, I guess it's not true then. But even then, you still had when the reveal of Bill,
Oh yeah, true.
and they were in that. So and I remember that going out. I was thinking, okay, maybe this is true then because they're still using them. Maybe there's some weight to this rumor because I find it interesting that yeah
they cameo in Waters of Mars. So you think, would it be true?
it's a hell of a coincidence if it isn't true. Because not to get into any well, yeah, I guess if you really want to keep your ears shut about the next series of Doctor Who, and this is all alleged, but they have teased that maybe some Daleks could be appearing in next series and at the end of Shooty's run, and it's all alleged at this stage, but
Well, it's rumored that there's that footage of Bonnie Langford on the motorbike, and there's rumour that they're speeding away from airborne Daleks or something like that. You never know.
This set of the base is really cool, but again, even as a kid, it never sold me that there was this big cavernous space on at the top of it, as we see in a bit. It just doesn't look like that.
Yeah, that's like
it looks like it's a
of
basement.
Empire State. It looks like it goes through the whole building, given all the people.
Yeah.
That's one detail I really liked about what everyone remembered about Martha. Like, if there'd been a battle or if people were injured, she was always seen, doing her best to treat people.
Yeah, like she's a doctor,
Yeah.
so I like that.
I know Freema Agaman has been asked that there's convention footage from it's either earlier this year or last year of her being asked, so are you going to be in Russell's new era? And she's just like, well,
Yeah.
she's not saying yes, she's not saying no, it's basically no comment.
It's always it's one of those things I always think it must be difficult, but at the same time when you go like that, it's almost like okay, you're in it then.
Yeah.
And she might not be. I mean, I still think there's a lot we're not being told about the 60th, and it would surprise me if the only stuff in it was like the Doctor and Donna. And I could be wrong.
Power of the Doctor. David Bradley, Colin Baker, and I'm sure it was Sylvester. Yeah, it was Sylvester McCoy. They were pretty much in the same block, like filming their scenes together.
Yes.
And in the hotel, the waiter asked her, "Can I take a photo with you guys?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure. But he put that on social media, which obviously led to speculation that they were in the special.
Because wasn't it like, we had the pleasure of having not one but 4 Doctor Who's in our in our hotel today. And it's like, oh great, well they're doing something then.
Yeah, because I think it was those three actors who interacted with Jodie on set. Like, they were with her, but I think it was Peter and Paul who were basically just given markers to say, this is Jodie's eye line, look up here.
Didn't Janet Fielding read Jodie's lines for Peter's? Or am I mate? I'm sure she stood in for Jodie at one point.
I'm sure she did, yeah. I think Peter's mentioned it, yeah.
Also, I like the idea that Paul McGann just has that Night of the Doctor costume on hand now because he wore it to a convention recently.
Oh yeah,
and I don't know if that was entirely planned. Like, I think there were costume photo ops later in the day, but I think he just wore it the whole day just because. So I just like the idea that he's got this to hand. He just brings it out whenever. It's the same thing with Jodie having hers when she did that lockdown message.
Yeah.
Just the fact that she's got her costume in her wardrobe, she's like, wow, okay, I might as well just do this then.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about this earlier. I'm assuming that's still Eric Loren in all the makeup.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I thought
he's
it
in
was.
the mask, he's doing the voice, so...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just wish... I know they want to say it's Mr. Diagras under there, but I just wish the accent wasn't American.
Yeah, it really is, like...
Should have just been like RP or something like that.
Yeah. We have new ways of living.
So I reckon he's trying to copy, like, the Dalek way of speaking, because he goes, Dalek.
Dalek.
You will.
What is that sound? Yeah. I will say, though, for all the dodgy accents that are in this, I do think Miranda Raisin is pretty good. She's doing an over-the-top one, but I think it's quite convincing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's mostly just the extras.
Yeah.
And, like, the bit part actors... Yeah. You think a slip, you'll fall.
In school, num, you'll fall.
Yeah, that's it. Sounds like Christopher Walken. Again, this is a classic Doctor Who set because to create all the alien-looking props in the background, got like science Bunsen burners and random coloured liquids, and occasionally a little flame will go. Like it's classic, cheap and cheerful Doctor Who, really. And it's I said it last time when we spoke about Rise of the Cybermen, but this whole era is getting to the point where you notice things like that, like you do in classic Who, and it's getting to the point now where it's like that's just cheap and cheerful. Classic Doctor Who working on a budget. And,
just look at
it's funny to think.
Just look at the spacesuit. I think every Doctor has worn it by now.
Yeah, when I watched Listen the other day with Orson Pink, what is wearing the spacesuit, and they've not bothered to remove the Sanctuary Base logos from it. So it's just like, why has he got the Sanctuary Base suit on? Because it's just like, wait, what? That suit is meant to be his. It's yeah. But it's funny because I think, so the Jodie stuff now, in sort of 10, 15 years' time, are we going to look at that and be like, oh, classic cheap and cheerful Doctor Who, it looks a bit naff, but, you know, because at the moment, it's like the best Doctor Who's ever looked, and like...
Definitely.
You know, so how long is that going to last before we look at that? And yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this about the psychic paper. If it was it would have made every Pertwee story like 3 episodes instead of 6.
Well, wasn't that the reason it was introduced? I think they spoke about it in Confidential because they didn't want to. In a 45-minute episode, you don't really have time for the whole capture escape thing, so they just go, "Look, I'm the Doctor. Here I am. Here's the psychic paper." Which, in a 45-minute format is a smart way to do it. But yeah.
One detail I like in Army of Ghosts, Rose tries to use it, but one of the staff members says, "It's lucky every Torchwood staff member is equipped with psychic paper training.
Yes.
This is blank."
Yes.
Which makes sense because the Doctor used it on Queen Victoria in that.
I like that.
In that episode.
Good. Yeah. And I like the fact that certain people just aren't susceptible to it. It's almost like the Jedi mind trick. Like certain people are just too on it.
Early in this series, it was William Shakespeare.
Shakespeare, yeah. I like that idea. I think that's a really cool idea. Yeah.
While they didn't film in New York, they were able to dip a little bit out of the budget, and James Strong was able to take a few photos of New York. They were able to fly out and take photos.
That's it. There's and I think it's like second unit stuff, like stock footage and kind of aerial shots were done just to do the background plates and stuff. Because there's that clip from Confidential where they're like the second unit, they're having a great time in New York. Meanwhile, we're in a car park in Wales, doubling for the Statue of Liberty. Yeah.
Because I think they filmed this in freezing cold October or something like that, where it was nice.
Yes.
Contrasted New York, where it was nice and warm. It also thematically split Series 3 into two parts, like you would Series 6 and 7. I'd say from Smith and Jones to Lazarus Experiment, you could call the tagline "One More Trip," and then from 42 onwards, it's Martha being a permanent companion.
Yeah, definitely.
It's funny
because that's the one more trip. Yeah,
with Martha, her getting a TARDIS key and her getting her phone upgraded. It was presented as big deals, but with Donna it was just oh, forgot to give you one. I've done it so many times.
Yes.
Here you go, take the key. Yeah.
And again, I quite like that just from a TV point of view. It's you're 4 series in, you kind of know the deal by now. Here's how it works, kind of thing.
Yeah, because when I got to Doctor's Daughter on my rewatch, the Doctor's just so casual. He's "Oh, give me your phone, time for an upgrade." Oh.
Yeah.
We're there already.
I don't know if it was like this or not, but we see the tentacles moving. I'm just imagining Eric Loren in the suit. All he could probably hear was.
I think they were done by remote control, were they?
Yes, yeah. Because it's you hear stories from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the live action films from the 90s. Apparently, the suit performers, because it was the animatronic heads. All that they couldn't hear anything. It was just the massively loud servo motors, in this big turtle outfit. And I'd love to play a monster in Doctor Who or something, but I could imagine that it is quite a hellish experience.
I mean, I've been in big character costumes, and even when it's a cold day, you're still sweating.
Yeah. If you told me, oh, you're going to get a part in Doctor Who, but you can be anyone you want for one episode, I just want to be somebody who gets killed by the monster.
Oh yeah.
Just give me a cool death by a monster, a really memorable, grisly monster death. I'd love to do that.
I want to be killed by a Cyberman or a Dalek.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of people say, oh, I'd want to play a Dalek or play a Cyberman. Can't see yourself then. Could be anyone under there. If you get a good death scene, that'll last forever. Is she wearing a wig, Tallulah? I
Unsurprisingly,
can't figure it out.
it does look very show. It does look a bit exaggerated.
Yeah.
Well, I know I can't remember which episode it was, but it was either episode 4 or 5 of Totally Doctor Who. Miranda Rayson did appear. Because typically for each episode, they'd get like a guest star or one of the companions to be on the show. And they would always be the one to ask the question that would be answered in next week's episode. And I can't remember what you won. I think you won a prize or something, like a goodie bag.
Well, I think there was this one thing as well where there was some quiz question segment. I could be making this up, but it sounds familiar. And if you lost, you had to go up against, like, it was an actor from the show, and if you lost, you had to give up one of your, like, prized Doctor Who possessions or something.
I think that was just
and apparently
I think that was just series 1, because I can't remember that being in series 2.
Yeah, and apparently there was one, and I don't know how much of it got shown, but it was with Noel Clarke. It's dated badly, but apparently it was like the kid got really upset because they had to give Noel Clarke like some prized Doctor Who item, and apparently he like turned it around and was like, "Oh no, keep it." But yeah, it's it's maybe not the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this episode strongly, again, I spoke about it last time in the Rise of the Cybermen one. It gives me strong memories of the 2007 Cardiff exhibition.
Yes, I remember that.
It's just so many happy memories of that place, and there's a lot of props from this there.
Yeah, the one I went to was in Manchester that I mentioned, and it was like you could go inside the Dalek. Not fully, but you could like stick your body in, move the plunger and gun, and also if you spoke into it, you sounded like one. That was really cool.
Yeah, I remember all of that. There was like a station where you could listen to the Doctor Who themes over the years. Mm-hmm. So you pressed the button and it would play like the 63 version, and then the 1970 version, and the 80s version, and the Kev McCulloch one. And I remember being fascinated by that. And one of the big things as well, at the Cardiff one, they had one of the legs of the Rachnos, and it was on the wall. And it was like, here's a part of the Rachnos costume. And then in the London exhibition, in the Earl's Court one, which was like the huge, massive one, they had the full-size Rachnos. And I remember going to the London one, after being to the Cardiff exhibition quite a few times, and then finally seeing the scale of that Rachnos. And I just remember being like, holy shit, this is massive. Mm-hmm. Like, it was just such an impressive prop, and it had this whole panel to itself, and you could just, God, it was incredible. Mm-hmm. I miss the Doctor Who experience. I miss the Doctor Who exhibitions. I know we're getting like the science one, the Worlds of Wonder, that's been going around for a bit, and we're getting that art one. But I would love it if the experience came back, or just something like the exhibitions. Just
because the one in Manchester, I think it was primarily focused on the new series. Because
the Cardiff one was too.
Yeah, whereas the experience in Cardiff, that focused on all eras, which was great.
Yeah. The experience.
I only went once, and that was in 2012. I'm a
Yeah. No, it's just such a... Honestly, see, the other week I went up to Cardiff to see Barbie and Oppenheimer. I went to the IMAX of Oppenheimer, and the Cardiff is the nearest IMAX to me, so me and some friends from work went down and did the double bill. And for food, we went to this cool like street food place, and it was like, it's built up of a load of shipping containers, and it was kind of cool. And about halfway through eating, I realised that site was where the experience once stood, and I was just like, how dare you stand where he stood, kind of thing. I was just like, oh my god, this is... I thought I recognised the area, and it's now like this big food place, which is really cool, but I just couldn't get it out of my head that was like, what was here before was just so good. And it's just it was this big purpose-built building and everything, and God, I miss that place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame that they never released the story of it, like the Matt Smith and the Peter Capaldi versions. They've never released like the linking bits. I always have hope that if the collection ever gets around to doing the new series, that those clips will be included. Because I remember for the Capaldi one, they had Lala Ward come back as Romana, and she was narrating. Yeah, and the whole framing device of the Capaldi one was based around Gallifrey, and there was this big montage, and it was all the Doctors there, and Lala Ward as Romana had this big speech about the Doctor, and it's never been released. And obviously I've only ever seen it the once, because it was an experience thing, and so I'm really hoping one day we get a release of those, because they've released like the cinema intros for Day of the Doctor and stuff.
They have, yeah.
But, yeah. This is quite a cool set piece as well of him on top of the building. It's realised very well.
I'm gonna say it. Falling off your exercise bike will kill you, but not being struck by lightning.
It's a bit of a stretch.
The 10th Doctor, doesn't he die of radiation eventually in the end of time?
Yes, and this is the thing. There's a bit of an inconsistency in this because they keep going on about the gamma rays, and that that Dalek's not got his light on.
Oh yeah.
They keep going on about the gamma rays and the gamma strike, and then later on, the Doctor says the lightning strike took everything out, and it's like, hang on, yeah, it's a completely different thing. But fair enough, whatever. So actually, there's that one shot in Stolen Earth that I always like, where there's like it's a 5-second shot of some Daleks, and the one just hasn't got its light on, and then halfway through the shot it turns on.
And then
it's almost like, oh my god, how did that get in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like the pig slaves just get a blast of it and all die, and then the Doctor holds on to it. Yeah, it's a bit silly.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure radiation is invisible. It's not lightning.
Yeah, this is it. It's a bit. Yeah.
Maybe bringing the army to life with radiation is a reference to the first Dalek story, because in that story they need radiation to survive, and it's never been brought up since, I think.
No, yeah. It's quite. It's a nice little tie back in.
And again, them needing to move on metal surfaces has never been brought up again.
Well, there you go. It's cool though. Like, it's an interesting idea having the humans with the Dalek brains and everything, and it's a cool idea. But it's a shame it never really does anything with it after this, because it's obviously they all get.
Again, it feels like it's
killed.
taking ideas from a better Dalek story, like Evil of the Daleks.
Yeah.
Why are they still American? It sounds even worse.
I know. I am a Dalek. And they all look like...
Did you say it's the extras that just really struggle with it? Because
yes, it really is.
You are not our master. We are not Daleks.
They all look like they've gone to the Halloween store as well and got Dracula makeup, especially with all their hair slicked back. Yeah. They look like they just put vampire makeup on for Halloween.
Daleks must have their hair put back.
So is this the second sonic screwdriver in the new series?
It is.
Or am I making that up?
Smith and Jones, it got frazzled in
That's
that.
it.
I thought
That was the one I was trying to think of.
Is he no longer going to have the sonic screwdriver?
No.
No.
It's a new one. Because that was what I was trying to think of. I knew it got destroyed at some point before this, but
It's a problem that no specific showrunner has. It's just the revival in general. Like, they just treat it as a get out of jail free card.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's funny in like Love and Monsters, like Elton describes it as a magic wand, and basically what it is in the revival.
Yeah. Mention Love and Monsters. That had a Blue Peter competition in it, and this series did as well with Utopia. John Bell.
Oh yeah, and in the commentary they all take the piss out of it.
Oh, do they? That's a bit harsh.
Like, well, it's loving. It's really loving, but like, so it's David Tennant, Femi Adjiman, and John Barrowman.
Yeah.
And like every time he comes on the screen, they just all take the piss out of the way he says "belt or shift key in." Like they all start doing it, and it's like it's done in a loving way. And
there's footage of him, being filmed, getting the part. You see him screaming, and with joy, of course. And yeah, I mean he's still acting today, because I know he was Bard's son in The Hobbit.
I was going to say he's gone on to be a relatively big actor. I think like he's been in quite a few things, and it's one of those things where I didn't know until somebody pointed it out on Twitter, because obviously he looks so different now. But yeah, I'm just looking it up here. He's in loads of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a real like rising star type of thing. He's in Trainspotting.
Also, just realised this story will be the 4th time the Daleks have appeared on stage. After beloved plays like Curse of the Daleks, Seven Keys to Doomsday, and The Ultimate Adventure.
Yes, The Ultimate Adventure, which recently got a figure set.
Yes.
And character options are really like trying not to call it The Ultimate Adventure, to the point where like Al Duar has left comments on people's videos. It's like, it's not called The Ultimate Adventure, it's the Sixth Doctor and TARDIS. But B&M have got it listed, on the tags in front of the product. It says Doctor Who Ultimate Adventure. So I'm sure that really pisses off somebody at character options. But yeah.
Funnily enough, when I went to Hooverville just this weekend gone, someone asked me if my Sixth Doctor outfit was the Ultimate Adventure variant, and I said, "Oh no, this is Terror of the Vervoids."
Yeah.
Yeah, I just mentioned like the Daleks being on stage because I recently watched Mr. TARDIS's review of Curse of the Daleks, and I'm like,
yes, yeah.
I've not listened to it, but the way he's describing it, I'm like, this was supposed to be like for kids, and it's tackling this subject matter.
It's quite grim, isn't it? It's yeah. It's never really talked about either. It's kind of a bit of a forgotten bit of history for Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
So, speaking of Mr. TARDIS, actually, his review of this, he pointed out something, and I cannot get it out of my head now. So, in a minute, when they kill Dalek Sec, the Doctor has this big thing. He's like, "You killed him." He has this whole diatribe about like, why did you have to kill him? Now, what actually happens is they go to shoot the Doctor, and Dalek Sec jumps in front of the way. They didn't mean to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, hang on, that wasn't our fault. He did that to himself.
Yeah. They outright say, we're going to destroy our greatest enemy.
Yeah. Speaking of like live shows as well, it's just reminded me, did you ever see Doctor Who live in 2010?
2010 Sheffield, yeah. That was great, yeah. Such
a good show. I looked up a load of videos about it recently, and I found my old programme from it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it was like a sequel to Carnival of Monsters, it's really cool. Yeah. It's such a great show.
Nick Briggs as Winston Churchill.
Nick Briggs as Churchill. They had that really cool effect where like the Doctor appeared outside the TARDIS. It was like a projection effect.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good. I remember I was in the front row for it, so all the monsters were like coming from all sides, and yeah. Yeah, I mentioned they reuse these guns in Torchwood. Like the biggest, most notable is in the episode Adam,
Yeah, because
when
you
they
see
add
footage
Adam
of
into the intro.
yeah.
Yeah,
But why?
but why?
It's so bad. Yeah, if they do not obey, they will die. So, but then Dalek Khan's just like, oh, kill them all. Why don't you just do that earlier?
Yeah,
Unless he's just like,
yeah, I agree.
unless Dalek Khan's just like, I want to be the last Dalek ever, not those two.
Yeah.
You couldn't have done this whole genocide thing earlier.
Yeah, it feels like you maybe could have prevented all of this.
I remember there being a theory that, because obviously the Doctor mentions Dalek Khan as the last Dalek, there's a theory that it was the Metaltron from a Dalek.
Yeah.
Who'd gone forwards in time and maybe ended up in Van Statten's museum.
It's really awkward bit of staging here towards the end.
Yeah, because the Dalek disappears and the Doctor just makes a "oh curses" gesture.
Yeah, and he has this weird hop towards it, and it's like, yeah, there were a few. Again, it was during the musical number earlier, and like bits like this. I just think some of the staging is a little bit awkward throughout this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like early in the episode where they're about to shoot the Doctor and Dalek Sector says, "Wait, you were gonna give a reason why?"
Yeah. I do like it though. Like again, the Doctor gives this whole thing, this whole passionate speech sort of, and the Dalek just goes emergency temporal shift and buggers off. Like I like that. Like again, it's a very Dalek thing. He's just like he's not going to bother listening to you. I'm gonna risk like killing myself to.
Originally, Laszlo here was supposed to die, but it was RTD who decided that's too much of a downer ending.
Yeah, and I actually do agree. I think it's nice that he gets to.
Yeah,
because nice otherwise it is a really depressing ending.
He's basically a human pig hybrid, which is what the Daleks were trying to do.
Yeah. And it's, the pig and the showgirl, it's romantic and sort of a bit cheesy, but it works, and it's very fairy tale-esque, and
this whole story's
about, I like it.
This whole story is about cross-species genetics, and what's the plot of Andrew Garfield's first Spider-Man movie?
Literally. God, that film would have been very different if Dr. Connors had just turned himself into a pig.
Next step in human evolution.
Yeah. Yeah, I did, because I know a lot of people do criticise this as just, he magically whips up a cure for him, but again, I think you've got to remember, like, Saturday night TV, you would just leave the audience on a feeling of just like, well, fuck, that was depressing. Because, like, if it weren't for that, the Daleks essentially win, everyone dies, and the Doctor's miserable at the end. At least with this, there's a little victory, and Frank gets a little bit as well, and yeah, and it's different with things like Turn Left, because that obviously leads into the finale, and you've got the high of that cliffhanger and all that. So I think it's different there. I just think for a big rompy blockbuster like this, it's right that it gets a happy ending, but.
Imagine what their kids are going to look like.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It does irritate me how oblivious the Doctor is.
He really is. He's a proper.
I mean, I get he's an alien, and sometimes love is a alien concept to him. But he spends a whole series being in love with his companion. How can he not see it when someone clearly has feelings for him?
It's the rebound thing, isn't it? It's just the whole like he's so blinded by it. I really like this story, the Lazarus Experiment. Next time, I think this actually is underrated.
It's my hot take. Mark Gatiss should have played the Master.
That would have been really good, actually. That would have been good.
Watching it recently, I think he and David have such great hero-villain chemistry.
I think it's a big reason I like the story so much, to be honest.
Oh yeah,
and it's it's a Marvel comic story done as a Doctor Who, and it's underrated. It's a good one. But yeah, that was Daleks in Manhattan, Evolution of the Daleks. Not without its flaws. It's filled to the brim with flaws, but obviously I've got nostalgia for it, so certainly I always enjoy watching it.
Yeah, not as bad as I remember it being, but not terrible. Like, if I was doing a rewatch of Series 3, I wouldn't say no to, skipping it over. I probably would still watch it with every episode.
Yeah, definitely. It's got its little quirks, and it's bits you can shake your head at and laugh at, but it's definitely not as terrible as people make it out to be. And like I say, I do say that with bias, but I really like it. I always have fun watching it, and yeah, it's an interesting one because it's one of those two-parters that people don't often discuss, and when they do, it's like, oh, that one. But yeah, well, everyone, that's the end of the commentary. I really hope you enjoyed it. Isaac, what are we going to be doing next time?
We have finished on our favourites and firsts, and we thought, since David Tennant is technically the Doctor again, we're going to do a couple more commentaries with his Doctor. Next time, we'll be looking at the epic Stolen Earth and Journey's End.
Yes, indeed. Rolling up to the 60th anniversary now. David Tennant's the Doctor again. Let's do some classic Russell era stuff. So, Stolen Earth, Journey's End next time. In the meantime, you can go and check out the playlist full of all of our other commentaries on this YouTube channel, and subscribe to Isaac's channel also, and follow us on all our social medias. Alright, if that's everything, see you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.